The San Gabriels loomed large, a jagged, brooding range, Angeles National Forest, a place of dark beauty. We were drawn to it, 5 of us, friends since childhood. We came to hike, to laugh, to conquer. We didn't know we were walking into a nightmare. The air grew colder as we climbed. The sunlight, once so bright, struggled to penetrate the thick canopy. Shadows stretched and twisted like grasping claws. A shiver ran down my spine. I tried to shake off the feeling. I told myself it was just the chill. I was wrong.
There was something else in those woods, something ancient and hungry. It watched us. I could feel its presence, like a predator stalking its prey.
We were being hunted, and we didn't even know it. The wind picked up. It moaned through the trees like a mournful cry. We joked about ghosts and legends, trying to mask our growing unease. Then, through the trees, we saw it. An old cabin, half hidden in shadow, dilapidated, sinister.
Someone dared us to go closer. A stupid dare, fueled by youthful arrogance and bravado. We should have turned back.
But the forest had already woven its spell, clouding our judgment, drawing us deeper into its embrace. We were caught in its web.
The cabin seemed to beckon us, a promise of shelter, or perhaps something more sinister. We were young. We didn't understand the danger. We didn't know that some doors are meant to stay closed.
We crossed the threshold and sealed our fate. The air inside the cabin was heavy, thick with the smell of decay and something else, something ancient and evil. Dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced the boarded-up windows. We heard a noise, a soft whisper, coming from the far corner of the room. We froze. Our hearts pounded in our chests. The whisper came again, clearer this time. Our names, spoken in a voice that was cold and empty, like the grave. We spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was nothing there.
We were alone, or so we thought. The forest had begun to speak to us, whispering its secrets, teasing us with its power. We were intruders in its domain, and it was letting us know.
We searched the cabin. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the creaking of the old wooden floorboards beneath our feet. Every step we took seemed to echo through the empty rooms, amplifying our unease, hoping to find a rational explanation for the whispers that had led us here. We found nothing. No signs of life, no clues to the source of the eerie voices that had haunted our nights. Just cobwebs, dust, and the lingering sense of dread that seemed to permeate every corner of the cabin. It was as if the very walls were watching us, waiting for something. Then, beneath a pile of rotting wood, we made a discovery. A leather-bound journal, its cover worn and cracked with age, as if it had been hidden away for decades. Its pages brittle with age, crumbling at the edges as we carefully turned them. The musty smell of old paper filled the air, mingling with the scent of decay. The journal was filled with frantic scribblings, the handwriting erratic and desperate. It was clear that the author had been in a state of extreme distress. The ramblings of a madman, we thought, but as we read on, a different picture began to emerge. Or so we thought at first. The more we read, the more we realized that the author had been documenting something real, something terrifying. The author wrote of the forest, of its hunger, a hunger that could never be sated, a darkness that consumed everything in its path, of the creatures that lurked in its shadows, beings that were neither human nor animal, but something far more sinister, creatures that craved human flesh. Their eyes glowed in the darkness, watching, waiting for their next victim. The journal was a warning, a desperate attempt to alert anyone who might find it to the horrors that lay hidden in the forest, a chronicle of madness and despair. The author had clearly been driven to the brink by what they had witnessed. We should have heeded its words, but we were young, naive. We thought we were invincible, that nothing could harm us, and fear had a way of making us reckless. Instead of taking the warning seriously, we laughed it off, convinced that it was just a story. We dismissed the journal as the ravings of a lunatic. We couldn't believe that such horrors could exist in the real world. We didn't know that we were sealing our doom. As we ventured deeper into the forest, the shadows seemed to close in around us, and the whispers grew louder, more insistent. We had ignored the warning, and now, there was no turning back. Section 5. The Journal Pages of Madness, Whispers of Truth. This journal, worn and tattered, held secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. Its pages, filled with cryptic notes and eerie illustrations, seemed to pulse with a life of their own. The journal spoke of a ritual, a dark, ancient practice that had been long forgotten by time. It detailed a way to appease the hunger of the forest, a hunger that demanded a sacrifice. We laughed it off, dismissing it as mere folklore. Nervous laughter echoed through the trees, masking our growing unease. A way to appease the hunger of the forest, a sacrifice. We laughed it off, nervous laughter, but deep down, we all felt a chill run down our spines. The forest seemed to be listening, its ancient trees whispering secrets to one another, trying to mask our growing fear. The more we tried to ignore it, the more the words of the journal lingered in our minds. They planted seeds of doubt and unease, growing with each passing moment. But the words of the journal lingered in our minds. Each of us began to suspect the other, wondering if someone among us believed in the ritual enough to act on it. The tension was palpable and the forest seemed to close in around us, planting seeds of doubt and unease. The journal's influence was undeniable. It was as if the very act of reading it had bound us to its dark will. We could feel its power growing stronger with each passing minute. The sun began to set. The forest, once filled with the sounds of life, grew eerily silent. Long shadows stretched out, casting an ominous pall over everything. We decided to leave, hoping to escape the growing sense of dread. Casting long, eerie shadows through the trees, we decided to leave, to get out of the forest before nightfall. But as we turned to go, we realized something. The path we had taken was no longer there, to get out of the forest, but as we turned to go, we realized something. The door. It was gone. Vanished. As if it had never been there at all. We were trapped, but as we turned to go, we realized something. The door. It was gone. Vanished. As if it had never been there at all. We were trapped. Panic welled up inside me. The forest seemed to close in, its trees forming an impenetrable barrier. The door. It was gone. Vanished. As if it had never been there at all. We were trapped. The realization hit us like a cold wave. We were at the mercy of the forest and whatever dark force resided within it, as if it had never been there at all. We were trapped. Panic welled up inside me. The forest seemed to close in, its trees forming an impenetrable barrier. We were locked in a cage with something evil. Panic welled up inside me. We were locked in a cage with something evil, something that had been watching us, toying with us. The journal's words echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the darkness that awaited us. We were locked in a cage with something evil, something that had been watching us, toying with us, waiting for the right moment to strike. The forest was alive with a malevolent presence, and we were its prey, something that had been watching us, toying with us. The journal had warned us, but we had ignored its dire predictions. Now, we were paying the price. The forest was no longer just a place, it was a living, breathing entity with a hunger that could not be sated. Waiting for the right moment to strike, we huddled together, our fear palpable. The forest seemed to close in around us, its shadows growing longer and darker. We knew we had to find a way out, but the journal's words haunted us. Would we ever escape, or were we doomed to become another tale in its pages of madness and whispers of truth? Section 6. The hunger awakens. The forest claims its first victim. The whispers returned, louder this time, angrier. They seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. The air grew colder. The shadows in the cabin deepened, taking on sinister shapes. Then, one of us screamed. Mark. He was gone, snatched from our midst, vanished without a trace. There was a struggle, the sound of tearing flesh. Then silence. A silence more terrifying than any scream.
The forest had tasted blood, and it wanted more. We were now prey, hunted by something ancient and evil, something that could move unseen, something that craved our terror.
Section 7. Escape from darkness. A desperate flight to nowhere. We had to get out. The air was thick with fear and every shadow seemed to move with a life of its own. We had to escape the cabin, escape the forest. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating us with dread. But there was no escape. Every path we took seemed to lead us deeper into the darkness. The forest held us captive. Its dense trees and shadows formed an impenetrable barrier. We were trapped in a nightmare, a never-ending maze of terror and despair. We searched for another way out. A window, a door, anything that could lead us to freedom, a hole in the wall, anything. We were desperate, our minds racing with the need to escape. We found a loose board. It was our only hope, our only chance. pried it free with trembling hands. Each creak of the wood echoed our fear. The forest whispered our names, urging us to hurry. Its voice was a chilling reminder of the danger we were in. We squeezed through the opening one by one, into the darkness, the unknown. The forest seemed to swallow us whole. It was better than staying in that cursed cabin. The air outside was cold, but it was a relief compared to the suffocating fear inside. We ran, blinded by fear, our hearts pounding in our chests like drums of war, desperate to escape the clutches of the forest. Every step felt like a battle against the unseen forces that held us back. The forest floor was treacherous. Roots and rocks threatened to trip us with every step. Roots reached out like grasping claws, each one a potential trap, ready to ensnare us. Thorns tore at our clothes, our skin, but we didn't stop. We couldn't stop. The pain was a small price to pay for our freedom. We could hear the forest behind us, whispering, mocking, hunting. Its presence was a constant reminder that we were not safe yet. We stumbled and fell, but we helped each other up. Our determination was the only thing keeping us going. In the distance, we saw a faint light, a glimmer of hope. It was our beacon, our guide through the darkness. We ran towards it with renewed energy. The light was our salvation, our escape from the nightmare. Finally, we emerged from the forest. The open sky above us was a welcome sight. We were free, but the memory of the forest would haunt us forever. Section 8. The scars we carry. The unseen wounds of the forest. The forest played tricks on our minds, twisting sounds, creating illusions. We saw things, heard things, things that couldn't be real, but they felt real, terrifyingly real. One by one we were picked off, swallowed by the darkness, until I was the only one left, running through the forest, sobbing, screaming. But no one could hear me. I was utterly alone. I stumbled out of the forest at dawn, broken, bleeding, haunted by the horrors I had witnessed, the horrors I had survived. But my ordeal wasn't over. The forest wasn't finished with me yet. It had marked me, scarred me, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Section 9. They don't believe the forest keeps its secrets. I tried to tell people what happened, to warn them, but they didn't believe me. They looked at me with pity in their eyes, dismissed my story as shock, delusions. They called me crazy, but I knew the truth. The forest was real, its hunger was real, and it was only a matter of time before it claimed more victims. I could still hear the whispers, feel the presence of the forest, watching me, waiting.
The forest had taken my friends, my sanity, my life. It had taken everything, and it wasn't finished yet. The forest that hungers would feed again, and no one would be safe.